Picture this: after years of hard work, you finally pay off your mortgage. The deed arrives, your home, at last, is yours. But is it really? Miss a few property tax payments, and you'll find out just how quickly the government can take it away. In truth, most Americans are perpetual renters to the state, paying for the right to stay in their own homes. This system, funding local governments for centuries, is rarely questioned, until now. A revolution is brewing. As of 2025, 5 states are openly challenging property taxes, drafting bold legislation and launching campaigns to eliminate them entirely. One state has even set aside $11.5 billion to make it happen. The stakes are enormous. True homeownership versus the challenge of funding schools, police, and fire departments. It's a political battle with your home at the center. But before we look at the states leading this charge, let's start where property tax foreclosures are already a crisis. Welcome to Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, the American dream often ends at a sheriff's sale. Each year, about 10,000 homes are seized, not for missed mortgages, but for unpaid property taxes. Many victims are elderly, living on fixed incomes, forced out by tax bills that keep rising. The root cause? Pennsylvania's heavy reliance on property taxes to fund public schools. As school budgets grow, so do property taxes, hitting homeowners hardest in districts with few businesses. Seniors on modest pensions are being taxed out of their homes. Outrage has sparked a legislative battle. Lawmakers are pushing to abolish the school property tax entirely. The plan: replace property tax revenue with higher income and sales taxes, spreading the burden across more people. Supporters say this would relieve homeowners and boost the economy, making homes true assets, not liabilities. Opponents warn that sales and income taxes are volatile, risking school funding during downturns. School boards and teachers' unions fear underfunded schools and declining education quality. Property taxes, they argue, are stable and locally controlled. The debate is fierce. Protect homeowners or preserve reliable school funding? Pennsylvania's decision could set a national precedent. Will they dismantle a centuries-old system, or will the risks prove too great? The answer will shape the future of home ownership and education in the state. Next, we head to Texas, where the property tax debate is even bigger. In Texas, there's no state income tax, but property taxes are among the nation's highest. Homeowners watch their tax bills climb as home values rise, fueling frustration and calls for change. In 2023, lawmakers passed an $18 billion property tax relief package, the largest in state history. But many want more: a complete end to school property taxes, the biggest part of the bill. Governor Greg Abbott champions a plan to swap property taxes for a higher sales tax, requiring a constitutional amendment. To replace $51 billion in property taxes, the sales tax could soar to 12% or more. Supporters say taxing consumption is fairer and would attract businesses and investment. Critics warn a high sales tax would hit low-income families hardest and drive shoppers across state lines. Renters would see no relief, but pay more for essentials. Economists worry about volatility and the impact on business. The battle lines are clear: true homeownership versus the risk of hurting the poor and destabilizing school funding. Texas faces a $51 billion question, with every resident's future at stake. Now let's see how Florida is taking the fight to its constitution. Florida, famous for no state income tax, relies heavily on property and sales taxes. Soaring home values mean rising property taxes, straining families and retirees. Now, lawmakers are pushing for a constitutional amendment to permanently reduce or even eliminate property taxes. The plan: let voters decide whether to swap property taxes for a much higher sales tax. Property taxes fund over $80 billion in public services, from schools to emergency response. Eliminating them would require a dramatic sales tax hike, possibly the highest in the country. Supporters say this would boost home values and make property a true asset, not a liability. They argue a consumption tax fits Florida's tourism-driven economy. Critics warn sales taxes are volatile, especially during hurricanes or recessions, threatening essential services. Local governments fear budget chaos, with police, fire, and infrastructure at risk. Renters would pay more on every purchase while homeowners reap the benefits. The debate is about protecting property wealth versus ensuring stable public funding. By putting the issue to voters, Florida is forcing a statewide decision on the future of taxation. The outcome will shape not just homeowners' finances but the very fabric of Florida's communities. Next, we turn to Ohio, where the movement is coming from the ground up. 16. In Ohio, the push to end property taxes is a true grassroots movement. It began with Beth Blacker, a retired nurse nearly losing her home to unaffordable taxes. Her story echoes across the state's seniors and working families, house rich but cash poor, threatened by rising tax bills. Blacker and volunteers formed the Ohio Property Tax Elimination Committee, aiming for a constitutional amendment. Their strategy: collect nearly 450,000 signatures to put the issue on the ballot. The proposal would replace property taxes with a higher, broader sales tax, covering more services. Supporters say it's about fairness. You shouldn't pay rent to the government for your own home. Rallies are filled with emotional stories of families fearing foreclosure. For them, it's a moral fight for true ownership. Opponents, schools, local governments, business groups, warn of devastating cuts to education and services. They argue sales tax won't fill the gap, risking teacher layoffs and larger class sizes. The debate pits passionate homeowners against officials worried about public funding. Ohio's future may be decided not by politicians, but by voters, one signature at a time. Now let's see how North Dakota is using oil wealth to chart a different path. In North Dakota, the drive to end property taxes is fueled by prosperity, not crisis. The state's oil boom created the $11.5 billion Legacy Fund, a financial powerhouse. Governor Doug Burgum's Path to Zero plan uses fund earnings to gradually buy down property taxes. Homeowners already see direct credits on their tax bills, paid for by oil wealth. The goal: let the fund's investment earnings eventually replace all property tax revenue, without raising other taxes. This approach offers stability, using only fund earnings and insulating schools from economic swings. Critics argue the fund could be used for other priorities, and question long-term sustainability. Environmentalists worry about relying on oil. Still, the plan has broad support: relief for homeowners, stable funding for services, and no new taxes. North Dakota's quiet revolution could become a national model for abolishing property taxes. While other states battle over tax swaps, North Dakota leverages its unique wealth for lasting change. If successful, it could be the first state where home ownership truly means owning your home, free and clear. 13. 5 states, 5 battles in the war on property taxes. Pennsylvania fights to save homes from foreclosure. Texas and Florida gamble on tax swaps, risking regressive sales taxes. Ohio's grassroots movement challenges the system from below. North Dakota uses oil wealth for a methodical, stable approach. Each path has risks: instability, inequality, or reliance on finite resources. The movement to end property taxes is real, organized, and gaining ground. It could redefine American homeownership and public funding for generations. The question isn't if property taxes will fall somewhere, it's where and how soon. Which state do you think will cross the finish line first?